Hi, it's Katrina.
Number 10. Ancient Sports Fan. Archaeologists with the Bulgarian Academy of Sciences recently discovered the skeleton of an ancient sports fan. The human remains were found buried with a special jar meant to represent the severed head of a boxer or a wrestler. Researchers are saying this is the ancient equivalent of discovering a football fan buried with the statue of their favorite player's head. The discovery was made near the small village of Bojanovo. The burial was within a larger necropolis, hidden inside of a burial mound about 10 feet tall. This type of burial mound is known as a tumuli, and they were popularly used by the Thracians who lived in Bulgaria 2,000 years ago. That was when the land was known as Thrace. Our sports fan likely died about 1,800 years ago, between the ages of 35 and 40. Archaeologist Daniela Agre also says the individual was a local aristocrat that likely belonged to an affluent family. But let's talk about the jar. The jar found with these skeletal remains is called a balsamarium, and it was made from brass. These kinds of ancient jars were used for storing valuable liquids, things like perfumes. But this one was carved into the likeness of a wrestler or a boxer. The jar was molded to match the face of someone with a crooked nose that had most likely been broken. The sports fan had ordered what was essentially a replica of his favorite fighter, and it was such an important object to the man that he took it with him in death. Number 9. Tassili Najer. Tassili Najer was discovered in 1933 by French military officers in Algeria. Between 1933 and 1944, Lieutenant Brennans of the French Foreign Legion sketched and detailed dozens of mysterious rock drawings found throughout the canyons of Tassili Najer. The whole place is now a national park, although Tassili Najer initially referred to a plateau rising out of the Sahara Desert near the borders of Libya and Niger. The name translates to plateau in the language of the local Ager people. The plateau rises just over 7,000 feet above the ground. Lieutenant Brennans donated hundreds of the sketches he made to the Bardo Museum in Algiers. This was what alerted the scientific community to the mystery unfolding out in the Algerian desert. But it wouldn't be until 1956 that a full expedition was organized to map and study every last piece of rock art at Tassili. It took 2 years, with researchers uncovering an astounding 15,000 pieces of rock art. The walls of gorges and shelters were left riddled with bizarre and even otherworldly images. One of the most famous is the image of a woman known as the Horned Goddess, seen running with a curved pair of demonic horns sprouting from her skull. The area here has been described as a forest of rock, with human activity dating back at least 12,000 years. Humans have been living here at the edge of the Sahara since the Ice Age, and they've been leaving their stories in the form of pictures on cave walls. Most of the images show activities such as hunting and foraging. However, there are strange images that seem to suggest something unusual may have happened here. There are humanoid figures depicted on the walls and images of monstrous creatures. Some have suggested the local desert dwellers encountered a race of mysterious beings who came down from the stars. Number 8. Mysterious Pictish Stone. Archaeologists in the UK recently found new evidence of the ancient Pictish people who once lived in northern and eastern Scotland. The Picts were a unique group of people likely descended from Iron Age tribes in Scotland. They were called the Picts, or the Painted People, by the Romans in the 3rd century. The Romans used the term to describe who they saw as barbarians living to the north of their occupied lands. The Picts were famous for painting themselves before battle, as well as their tattoos. Even in the Middle Ages, after the Romans were long gone, outsiders continued calling the people of Scotland Picts. It was almost a derogatory term used by Irish and Anglo people to describe who they saw as primitive humans. The most recent discovery was made by a team of archaeologists at the old Kilmadock Cemetery near Dun. They discovered a slab of carved stone with a mysterious inscription written in a vague medieval alphabet. The alphabet is called Ogham, and it was mainly used in Ireland. This is the first example found in central Scotland. The slab was carved about 15,000 years ago, survived through the centuries, and then was used as a cover for somebody's grave. Archaeologist Murray Cook says the slab was likely built as a public statue, commissioned by a wealthy local family. It goes to show that even if the outside world viewed the Pictish people as savages, that was hardly the case. The stone slab spells out the names of the wealthy patrons who had the work commissioned. It was likely a way to celebrate their Pictish heritage and their new Christian faith. Number 7. Ice Age footprints. In Utah, scientists recently discovered 88 fossilized human footprints dating back 12,000 years. The tracks were uncovered in shallow riverbeds that have long dried up. They were left behind by early humans navigating a much different world than the one that exists today. These people were alive during the Ice Age, before the extinction of creatures like the woolly mammoth and the giant short-faced bear. As of right now, this is only the second set of human footprints from the Ice Age ever discovered on American soil. Expert Kevin Hatala from Chatham University says ancient footprints are unique because they give scientists a lot of information about the people who left them. For example, researchers can understand how large the people were, exactly how they were walking, and how many people lived in a group. But because the discovery is brand new, we have yet to put together all that information. What we do know is that the tracks were made by people walking barefoot. We also know there was major Ice Age activity happening in the area. The footprints were found near a site discovered in 2015 containing ancient human artifacts. Researchers found the earliest evidence of human tobacco use on the planet, also from 12,000 years ago. The dried riverbeds of Utah were clearly once a hotbed for human activity. And now for number 6. But first, I want to give a big shout out to Abington Gama and Deborah Lerman. Thanks so much for watching and supporting Origins Explained. If you are new here, be sure to subscribe and join the family. Number 6. The Visby Warrior. A digital artist recently brought to life a man who died in 1361 AD at the Battle of Visby. This battle was one of the most one-sided massacres ever recorded in human history. 2,500 skilled Danish warriors arrived at the city of Visby, located on the small Swedish island of Gotland. They then massacred the 1,800 peasant farmers living there who had nothing to defend themselves with but their farming tools. Archaeological investigations here have revealed that the massacre was brutal. These people were slaughtered mercilessly and with extreme prejudice. And it was all because King Valdemar Atterdag of Denmark had just conquered 2 neighboring territories and was eager to subjugate the people of Gotland. And so he sent a massive force of warriors and mercenaries to kill any resistance. In this case, the resistance was mostly young people and the elderly. Following the massacre, the bodies were dumped into about 5 mass graves around the medieval town walls. Many of these people have been discovered with horrific battle wounds. Brazilian artist Cicero Moraes recently took it upon himself to bring one of Gotland's defenders back to life. He reconstructed the head of a man who died after his skull was smashed with a pole weapon and his face was caved in with an axe. It was a brutal murder, but Moraes brought to life what the man looked like before his death. The 3-dimensional reconstructions were made with the help of the Swedish History Museum in Stockholm. And as you might expect, the dead farmer looked just like any ordinary person. Number 5. Mistress. The city of Mistress was abandoned in 1832 and has remained abandoned ever since. It's perched high up on the forested Mount Taygetos, overlooking the countryside of ancient Sparta. However, the city was built over 1,000 years after Sparta was nothing but a distant memory. The fortress was built by William of Villehardouin, Prince of Achaia, around the year 1249 AD. It was conquered by the Byzantine Empire and made the capital of the Despotate of the Morea. The city was later taken by the Turks, the Venetians, and then left to be a breathtaking medieval ruin unlike anything else in the world. During the 13th century, it was a real thriving settlement. It became extremely wealthy. Huge monasteries were built, and the fortress on the mountain turned into a kind of cultural hub during the Byzantine Renaissance. This city attracted artists, thinkers, and architects throughout the 14th and 15th centuries. It was such an impressive place that when it was rediscovered in modern times, people thought it was an abandoned Spartan city. Number 4. Thors Hammer. Prior to the development of a housing project in Sweden, archaeologists were called to do a quick examination of the site. Their inspection revealed a shockingly rare treasure from the peak of the Viking Age. They found a metal amulet in the shape of Thors hammer, Mjolnir. The amulet was crafted between the 9th and 11th century and is currently the only one of its kind ever found in the region. It's an amazing treasure, decorated with intricate designs. Researchers say it was most likely covered in gold and silver when first made. A hole through the handle of the hammer means it was worn around the neck as a magical amulet. This is an incredible discovery because it shows how people in Scandinavia truly did worship the Old Norse gods. The amulet was likely a sign of devotion to the god of thunder, and almost certainly one of the last ever made. It was in the 11th century that Christianity began to slowly push away the Old Norse beliefs in gods like Thor and Odin, replacing them with Jesus Christ. Number 3. Mycenae's Grave Circle. Mycenae is one of the most important archaeological sites in Greece. It's in northeastern Peloponnese, almost 100 miles from Athens. Starting around 1600 BC, this city was one of the major centers of Greek civilization. It was a powerful military stronghold that ruled over most of southern Greece, including the island of Crete and part of Anatolia. It reached its height in 1350 BC, with a great town spread out from its roots and a mighty citadel at its core. But disaster came in 1200 BC. When the Bronze Age came to a violent end, so too did the city of Mycenae, and it was largely abandoned. One of the greatest discoveries made in Mycenae is Grave Circle A. It was a royal cemetery established in the 16th century BC, just south of the main entrance into the citadel. It was called the Lion Gate. It was built outside the physical walls of the city, then later enclosed within the Acropolis during the 13th century, when the city needed to be expanded. The graveyard here is like the Greek version of the Valley of the Kings in Egypt. The site contains 6 shaft graves, the deepest burrowing 21 feet down into the earth. 19 men, women, and children were uncovered between the shafts, with about 5 bodies in each one. The tombs were found filled with treasure, from gold jewelry to ornate staffs and gruesome death masks. The big mystery is that nobody's ever learned who these people were. One of the most exciting theories is that the graveyard contains the body of Agamemnon, the Mycenae king from Greek mythology who ruled during the Trojan War. However, this has never been fully confirmed. Number 2. Viking Swords. In Sweden, archaeologists recently stumbled upon a pair of very exciting swords from the Viking Age. The ancient weapons were found during the investigation of a late Iron Age burial site, dating from between 600 and 1000 AD. There are over 100 graves and 2 burial mounds here, with 3 underground stone tombs. It was just outside one of the tombs that the archaeologists came across the swords, which had been propped upright against the wall 1,200 years ago, when the tomb was sealed. Researchers believe these swords had been left outside the tomb as a kind of grave marker, or a physical memento to honor the dead. It also would have been something the family members could come to visit whenever they wanted to see their deceased loved one. The full importance of the burial ground has yet to be revealed. Excavations also found the cremated remains of several humans and animals, some old gaming pieces, bear claws, and fancy combs. The whole area was likely occupied by agricultural Vikings, the kind of Vikings that stayed at home and grew food instead of pillaging. Number 1. Roman city of Rijeka. The ancient Roman city of Rijeka was discovered in Croatia. During a recent geophysical survey of an 18th century Christian church in the village of Danilo, scientists identified the foundations of a much older building. This building was likely a Roman temple, built almost 2,000 years ago. This led them to an even bigger discovery. Researchers from the Institute of Archaeology at the University in Warsaw found evidence of a bustling Roman forum. This was the central part of any Roman city. The forum was like the city center, or the downtown core, where the inhabitants could gather to discuss social and economic issues. This particular forum was likely located at the intersection of the main roads in Rijeka. There wasn't only a temple here, but court buildings, municipal offices, monuments, huge arches, and public gathering spaces. Sadly, all of these buildings are totally gone. At some point, it was all destroyed and built over by new structures. The cemetery was built over the bones of the forum starting in the 9th century AD, and in typical Christian fashion, The Church of St. Daniel was built directly over the ruins of the original Roman temple, a temple which most likely would have been dedicated to one of the many Roman gods. Thanks for watching! Which lost Roman city from the ancient world would you love to explore? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. See you next time. Bye!